Here's what I'm going to do. Let's get us started. I'm going to introduce Christian and Clint, and then I'm going to throw it over to you two to get us going. So Christian Moore, we're thrilled today. We've got two wonderful guests for our Resilience and Student Motivation Summit here, online summit. First guest is Christian Moore, the author of The Resilience Breakthrough, internationally renowned speaker, licensed clinical social worker, and advocate for youth. He's the founder of the WhyTry program. Welcome, Christian. And then our other guest that we're thrilled to have is a gentleman named Clint Pulver. Welcome, Clint. Clint's an award-winning, acclaimed motivational keynote speaker that specializes in helping organizations know how to engage team members and motivate them. We're going to hear a little bit about him and his powerful story of being a student that was kind of set on a path to success because of a teacher that knew how to reach him. So with that, I'm going to throw it over to you, and I'm going to work on my audio here just a little bit. Welcome, welcome.
All right. Well, I want to thank my friend Clint for being here. Clint Pulver, he's an amazing human being. I got to spend a couple hours with him about, 6 or 7 months ago. And that's why I can describe Clint. When I walked away from him, I felt like I was a much better human being. He's one of those people, some people you're around, they just launch you, they lift you up. And when I was around him, I was like, man, I'd love to spend more time with him. I don't want to give away too much of a story, but he's a Renaissance man. He's a true Renaissance man, multi-talented, and has just had a huge impact on this world. And so it's just such an honor to have you on here, Clint. And I know right now what's going on with COVID and a lot of the pain out there in this world, this world needs to hear from you. And I know you have an amazing journey, so take us on the journey with you. Help us understand who you are. All right, so I'm not hearing Clint. I'm not hearing him. Hey, Dave, you want to play with my...
Clint, we can't hear you.
How's that? Is that better? Can you hear me now?
That's better. Yep, you're all good now.
Yeah, we got it? Awesome.
Yeah.
Jeez. Welcome to the world of technology and doing virtual, right? It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I just, what I was saying is, thanks Christian and Jason for letting me be here, be a part of this. It really means a lot. The few minutes that they gave me, I want to kind of preface to let you know, I'm not going to be someone that's going to sit here and like click through 57 PowerPoint slides or tell you 57 things you need to be doing more of in education right now. That is not my goal. But I am the person that believes in the power of moments. And I think that it's the moments in our lives, that's what we remember. And it's those moments that help us live a better story. When I was young, my dream was to be a pilot. Like nothing sounded cooler than sitting on a runway, grabbing the throttle and the theme song from Top Gun playing through my little brain and just cranking it and taking off. Like that's what I wanted to do. And when I was 18 years young, I had the opportunity to graduate with my pilot's license. Like I could barely drive and homeboy was flying an airplane. It was a really surreal thing. And after I graduated, I had 2 years, I went and did a study abroad. I came home, and at this point in the story, I'm 21. So when you're 21, there's a few things that can happen in your life, but one of which is you have to renew your driver's license. So I ended up going to the DMV to do this. I handed the lady my paperwork. She doesn't even look at me. Starts scanning the paperwork. She says, okay, stick your head in the black box. And we've all been to the DMV, right? We've had this non-glorious experience. So I go over, stick my head in this black box for the vision test, and she says, read the letters. The screen went white, and there were 6 little black dots, no letters. And I looked at her and I said, ma'am, I think your machine's broken. And she looked back and she's like, listen, honey, I've been here for 7.5 hours today. I've literally seen 74 people. All of them stuck their head in the black box and read the letters. Read the letters. I did it 3 times, and literally the same response. She would not. She wouldn't help me out. She wouldn't let me go to another machine. Finally, she comes from around the counter, pushes me out of the way, sticks her head in the black box, and reads out loud, CKGELFWZYN. And it's like that awkward moment where she's like, honey, can you read? And I'm like, ma'am, yes, I can read. And she's like, well, then sweetheart, I think you're blind. And I laughed again and I said, listen, lady, like, we're having a conversation right now. Like, I see you. And then I said, I drove here today. And then she got real serious. She looked back at me and said, well, you're not driving home. And she took the stamp and she denied my paperwork in big red letters. And long story short, I'm under house arrest at the DMV. I had to call my mother. I could not leave that day. I did not renew my driver's license. I ended up at a place called the Moran Eye Center at the University of Utah with one of the top leading authorities in a rare and degenerative eye disease known as keratoconus. And I had it bad. My eyes as a 21-year-old kid were as bad as an 87-year-old's. And all you need to know about keratoconus is that it's degenerative. And your cornea gets thinner and thinner and thinner until eventually you lose your eyesight. And that was another moment that I'll never forget in my life, where as a young person who literally had their eye on the sky and then watched in a moment as that sky fell in all around me. And the doctor looked over and he said, Clint, by the age of 30, 31, you're going to go completely blind. You will lose your sight. He said, that's option number one. Option number two is we can do what's called corneal transplants, where we literally will cut your corneas out and we replace them with a donor's cornea. And he said, but your eyesight's not going to improve. And then he asked the question that so many young people are asked, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? What's the plan? And I said, I want to fly. And he closed that door extremely fast for me. And some of you might be hearing this story and go, well, Clint, there's greater tragedies in the world. And that's true. But I don't think we understand how hard and difficult it is to pivot, right? Sometimes, or when things become literally uncertain, or we have direction, we have momentum, and then in a moment that all changes. And we have seen that firsthand in the last month and a half, where COVID, the pandemic, and everything that we are all experiencing has literally overtaken our lives, has derailed us from the norm, and now we must think about what's the new next. And I know that some of you, especially as educators right now, you're watching this, and you literally feel like you're on an episode of Survivor. Going, vote me off, right? I am done. It's hard enough to connect with the kids. You're struggling with curriculum. People aren't even showing up to class. There's hundreds of problems, and it is easy to see what's wrong right now. But I promise, and as someone who has gone from different periods of my life of uncertainty and not knowing what to do, that there are those moments that you can create. We can still design, we can still dream, we can still innovate, we can still choose to see the good in times where there are problems. We can still see possibilities, not just the limitations. Not too long ago, there's a little guy. And this little kid, he didn't struggle with science or English. That wasn't his problem. Literally every day when the kid would go to school, he'd sit in class, he'd try to focus, and as soon as he would pay attention, his right hand would start to move. And then his left hand would start to move. And obviously, like if you've ever sat in a meeting and someone's like clicking their pen or they're tapping their foot and you're like, do it one more time and I'm going to rip your face off, okay? Like it's annoying and it gets annoying. And the little kid, all the other kids would call him the twitcher. He got nicknamed the tapper because he just could not sit still. And even the teachers would constantly tell the young man, hey, young man, I need you to hold still. Young man, sit still, stop tapping. Female teacher, she lost it one day, looked at the kid as he was tapping in class, and she said, I just need you out. Like, I need you out of the classroom. I don't know what else to do. Go to the principal's office. So the boy takes the long walk down to the principal's office, sits down, the principal walks in. First thing he says to the kid is, what did you do? What happened? Why did she send you here? And the little boy said, I have a hard time sitting still. And he said, I'm sorry. He said, I don't mean to. I literally don't even know I'm doing it half the time, but it does help me focus. And the principal's hearing this going, okay, all right, here's the deal. I'm going to send you back to class, and when you feel like you need to move, when you feel like you need to hit something, he said, I want you to just sit on your hands, okay? Kid thought it was a decent idea. Principal thought it was a stroke of genius. Dismisses the kid back to class. The kid walks in, sits down. Not 5 minutes goes by, and as soon as the kid starts to focus, tap, 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 tap. Right hand starts moving. Left hand starts moving. But then he remembers that he's got to sit on his hands. But when he sat on his hands, his feet would start tapping. Listen, it happened again and again and again until one day there was a teacher, an educator, and his name was Mr. Jensen. Been doing it for a long time. Had white hair, big Coke bottle glasses, always wore suspenders and a red tie. He looked at the kid as he was tapping in his class, and he just gently reached over and said, "Hey, young man, you in the back." He said, "You and me, we're going to talk. We're going to have a conversation. I need to see you after class." And all the other kids, they all go, "Ooh, Twitcher's going to die." Kid's nervous. The bell rings. Class dismissed. It's a completely empty room, minus Mr. Jensen and the little kid. And the old teacher goes to the back of the room. He grabs a big chair and a little chair and just says, "Come here, sit down, sit down." The first thing Mr. Jensen says to the boy is, "Do you know why we're having a conversation?" And the kid said, "Yeah, it's because I move." He said, "Listen, you're the problem. You're the problem kid. You're the kid that everybody talks about. You're the kid that got sent to the principal's office 2 weeks ago because you just can't sit still. You constantly tap. You do it in my class. You do it in everybody else's class." He said, "But I watch what you do." He said, I've sat back, and every time when you do your homework, you'll start moving your right hand while you're writing with your left hand. And then he said, you could switch it, and you'll move your left hand. He said, in big adult words, we call that ambidextrous. And the kid's like, "Amble, what?" And Mr. Jensen said, "Try this." He said, I got to know. He said, "Can you tap your head and rub your belly at the same time?" He said, "Try it." And the little kid, he gave it a go, and he could do it. And then he said, "Now switch it. Switch it." He said, "Then can you rub your head and then tap your belly?" And back and forth, the kid went, and literally, without thinking about it, the kid could do it. Mr. Jensen, he leaned back in his chair, and he laughed, and he looked at the kid, and he said, "I knew it. I knew it." And he leaned over and simply said, "I don't think you're a problem. I just think you're a drummer." Most of the time, educators yell out, "What's the difference between those two?" I don't think you're a problem. I just think you're a drummer. Now, remember when I told all of you before I began this today that I am the person that believes in the power of moments, single moments in time that can change people's lives. Because in that moment, Mr. Jensen, the old teacher, he leaned back in his desk, he opened up the top drawer, and he reached inside, and he pulled out my very first pair of drumsticks. My very first pair. I am that kid. I was that kid. I was the problem. I was the kid that got nicknamed and teased and bullied. I was the kid that got sent to the principal's office. But it took one person in my life who turned the problem truly into an opportunity. I'll never forget when he took the sticks and he put them in my hands and he said, "Clint, listen." He said, "These are for you." And he said, "But here's the deal." He said, "You got to keep them in your hands. Just keep them in your hands as much as you can." And I can stand here today and honestly tell every one of you that are watching that 23 years ago, literally to this exact day, I have tried my best to keep my promise to Mr. Jensen. For 23 years, I've had the opportunity to tour and record all over the world playing drums. Remember in the story, I couldn't fly anymore. So what do you do when you don't know what you want to do with your life? You go to college, right? Ba-da-bing, that's a joke. I went to college. I graduated in 2012 with a bachelor's degree and 0 college debt. 0. And that was all from music scholarships, baby. And I don't, I've been on America's Got Talent. I played with incredible artists, the stadiums, touring, all those things. And listen, I don't tell you all that to go, "Wow, good for you, Clint," or "Oh, that's amazing." That's not the reason. The reason I'm telling you that is because one person, specifically a teacher, saw potential, saw worth, saw possibility, and simply created a moment that sparked that for me. And Christian and Jason, they said, hey, Clint, we're doing this rad, bad webinar event with a lot of our closest friends, and we would love it if you would come and speak to us. But we would really love it if you would be willing to play the drums. And so, virtually, for the first time ever, we are going to give this a go. We've got the drums mic'd up, and literally we're streaming this live. And if it's okay with everybody, I would love to play for you. And
Let's do it. Yes,
all right.
sir.
Is that cool?
Hey, yeah, I also want to dedicate it, Clint, to the teachers. You know, teachers put out so much energy. One thing I love about drumming is drumming is all about energy, and it moves us from an energy standpoint. And I really believe teachers are the lifeblood of this country, this education system. And so from you and me, I want to dedicate this to all the incredible teachers that are really the lifeblood, the energy of education.
Amen to that.
Absolutely. Yep. So that is dedicated to everybody that's watching and education and the teachers and the contributions that you're making. I know that sometimes it might just seem like it's a drop in the bucket, but at least it's a drop in the bucket. And my mom, she always said growing up, she said, Clint, little by little makes a little a lot. And right now, more than ever, we need those efforts, those small little efforts that we will look back on this moment. We will look back on this pandemic. And I think it will be one of the most defining moments in our lives. And yeah, just please don't forget that your efforts, as small as they may seem, they do matter and they make a difference. And I have to dedicate it to Mr. Jensen before I start, to the man 23 years ago who looked at me and said, you're not a problem, you're a drummer. So this is for him, and it's for you. Let's do this.
Wow. But happy everybody, give you a standing ovation. Yeah. On behalf of everybody listening, standing ovation. That's from everybody.
Incredible.
Wow. Woo! That was some energy right there.
And we're back.
And I know several people have said, hey, Christian, it's not just teachers, anybody helping kids that drum.
Anybody.
That drum solo was for, because it's for everybody. Counselors, social workers, administrators. I appreciate a couple people pointing that out. It's for everybody. But, you know, it was a teacher like you, Clint, I'll let you catch your breath. It was a teacher that made a huge difference in my life. You know, I make a living combining art and mental health, and it was Mrs. Plakos, my teacher, that gave me that energy and let me know that I had tremendous value and that one day I'd be able to make a living as an artist, and was able to bring those worlds together. And Clint, man, the energy you have and the love you have for the kids in this country is unbelievable. I can't wait for them to hear more from you and the tremendous work you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for letting me catch my breath. I got to stop eating Twinkies. That's what's got to happen. I'm getting out of shape. But
hey, I would tell you, Clint, a lot of people said they really needed this. Clint, a lot of people said that it's what they needed right now. And I know I needed it too, man. That was a beautiful thing.
Thank you. Thanks to everybody for watching. And you're right. It's not just teachers. It's good parents. It's administrators. It's the whole team. It's everybody that truly helps to write the better story, specifically for a child. And
that
we'll
was
never
awesome.
forget the good ones.
Hey, Clint, Christian, can you hear me all right? Have I got my audio going?
Yeah, you're good.
Good?
Yeah.
Yep, you're good.
Okay,
You're good.
I got rid of my delay. Hey, I wanted to throw it out there now. So, Clint, your message really has resonated with the people that are tuned in in kind of a unique way. And one of the things that's come up, and I think it goes right along with this concept of resilience and motivation, and it really applies, you know, right now during pandemic situations, just like it does without. But that the concept of connection and having that person in your life that really kind of helps you along. Christian, I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about some of your either experience, or I know you've got some, you usually have pretty helpful lists that kind of go along with that message. What are your thoughts on that, Christian? Like,
I'm gonna do that. Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, I have a couple I want to share. You know, one thing I love about Clint, he's an incredible motivator. I mean, I know when I've been around him, he motivated me tremendously. He's someone that can really, you know, get that spark in someone, create that motivation. And I got 5 main points I want to highlight and get Clint's feedback on. But I just want real quick, Clint, was there anything else you wanted to add on the back end of that drum thing that you wanted to say?
No, I just again, thanks everybody for watching. And I listen, and I'm not the best drummer in the world. There's plenty of drummers who are radder, badder, faster, cooler, whatever you want to call it. But I think that's the significance of it all. That Mr. Jensen taught me that it's not about being the best in the world. It's about being the best for the world. And literally everybody that's watching, like, that's what you're doing right now. And so I just, kudos to the Mr. Jensens of the world.
It's so interesting. One of the 5 things that I wanted to talk about, I wanted to mention is, and I know you're an expert on millennials, and I want you to share a little bit of that expertise. But I know for your generation, the younger generation, they really care about giving back. Kind of what you're alluding to there is for other people, and one of the strategies to create motivation, inner motivation, is how is this relevant to them today, to their future, to others, to their family, to their neighbors. This younger generation really cares about that right now, and they want to have an impact. They really care about impact and relevancy. Is it relevant to them today? And I know that motivation is built into that relevancy. What are some of your feelings about that, Clint? What do you see with relevancy and doing that service to others? I mean, this current generation cares about the earth. They want to know, is it relevant to my physical environment, to my internal state? They don't want to just go work for a corporation for 30 years or worry about being laid off. They want to have impact.
Yeah, one thing that I've learned, we started what's called the Undercover Millennial program. So it's kind of like Undercover Boss without the makeup. I would go undercover into organizations as a millennial looking for a job. And I would ask all of the employees, like, what do you think? What's it like to work here? And the cool thing is because I was a millennial, they would tell me everything. What worked, what didn't work. So we've done 10,000 employees that we've interviewed through that process. And I think you're right to some extent, Christian, that purpose is significant. But we also found that every young person, or any person, and for the purpose of what we're doing here, is always asking the question to a leader, to a teacher, even to a parent, let me know when it gets to the part about me. Let me know when, your business goals and your development and your curriculum, let me know when it considers me. And I know that some people hear that and they might think, well, those entitled little shining stars in my life, right? Like, let me know when it gets to the part about me. And I think we sometimes get sick of the millennial generation or hearing about this entitled workforce or the younger people in this world. But I don't think it's so much about entitlement as it's just good business. It's good classroom education. It's about bringing humanity back into those places. And I think that no significant learning ever happens without significant connection. And so the better that educators get at helping people find their purpose and establishing that connection, and that I can be the catalyst to help you achieve that, the more influential you become in a young person's or any person's life. And I think the better we can get at doing that, the more influential we will be.
Now, you've been on America's Got Talent. I know you've been in some movies. You've done some amazing, amazing things in your life. And one thing as I talk to a lot of kids, they'll say, well, I don't believe it's possible I can do this. I don't believe it's possible I can go to college. I was talking to a young man the other day who was just saying, college is an option for me. My parents don't begin to have the money to help me go to college. And I asked him, I said, have you ever been on a college campus before? He told me no. And that mindset was there's zero chance I'll be able to ever go to college. And when you don't believe something's possible, you really don't even put yourself on the path to reach that goal. I would love for the people to hear how are you able to get the hope, the faith, the belief to do difficult things where you thought it was possible. I've learned that if I can just get a child on a college campus, sometimes they'll learn about student loans. They'll learn about it. The kid I was talking to the other day has some learning disabilities like you and me have, Clint. And I was explaining to him that every college has services for students with disabilities that can help them.
Yes.
And you help them with ADHD and all these different things. But I didn't even know for years that colleges are literally spending millions of dollars to help kids like you and me, Clint, be able to thrive on a college campus. So just talk a little bit about where possibility comes from for you.
I think, at least for me personally in my life, the possibility has come through seeing the possibility in others. And then when that transfers back to me, the Hawthorne Institute, they did a study and found that on average in one day, young people have anywhere from 15,000 to 60,000 thoughts in a day. I know some of you are thinking, like, Clint, I know a few that barely have 12. But on average, 15,000 to 60,000 thoughts. But what they've also found is that 80% of that is negative. Thoughts like, I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not smart enough, I can't go to college, my ACT score sucks, my mom didn't go to college, so why could I go to college, right? Or why did I only get 56 likes on my Instagram post? Whatever you want to call it. But if you take 80% of negativity and then you compound that day after day after day, you look at the stats, especially now, the battle that we're fighting is, yes, still Corona and this pandemic, but a lot of it is isolation, anxiety, depression, negative thoughts, feeling like you're not enough, or the thoughts of uncertainty. And now more than ever, we need people that can spark the possibilities. William Damon out of Stanford found that the #1 contributing factor as to how people, especially young people, found purpose in their life was through the association and connection with other purposeful people.
Other purposeful people. Wow.
Yeah, it's right, like Jim Rohn, right? Classic Jim Rohn. You become the average of the 5 people you associate with most. Or show me your friends and I'll show you your future. You put a hard-to-catch horse in a field with an easy-to-catch horse, you usually end up with 2 hard-to-catch horses, right? It's that association that really, truly matters. And when we can help good kids, right, associate with good people doing great things, you set them up for success, because chances are they don't see it within themselves. I've never done this before on a webinar, but I wanted to try it. I wrote this phrase, and I apologize, Christian, as you were speaking, but it says, greatness is within the soul. So Christian and Jason, because you're the only ones I can see right now, say this with me on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Greatness is
within the soul.
Nice. Try it one more time just so we can hear you guys, just for kicks. Go ahead.
Greatness is within
the soul.
The soul.
Nice. Okay. Good job. Except for the fact that it doesn't say that.
You tricked me.
Oh,
There's 2 thes. Right?
Oh my gosh.
Greatness is within
the soul.
And I think, again, that's sometimes how all of us can sometimes view or see a challenge, our life, perspective. It matters, because perception determines your reality, and whatever's real to you influences your behavior. The cool part is not that you didn't get it. The cool part about this is that it doesn't matter if it's 10 years from now or 20 years from now. If we ever see each other again, and I hold this up, you all going to be like, oh, you ain't getting me again, Clint. You will always see the 2 thes. And the reason for that is simply because I changed your perspective. I think, again, when we help young people see what's really there, when you point out in their life, no, you are capable enough. There are 2 thes. You are limitless. You have the ability to do this. You could go to college. You can do great things. They see that. And again, you create a moment. The 2 thes were there the whole time. But I think, again, hanging out with purposeful people that allow you to see more matters.
I love the idea of purposeful people. You know, that connection, we know, is like oxygen for us. And a lot of us, some of our oxygen has been taken away right now, you know, with COVID. And one of the things I'm really encouraging people to do is, you know, relationships you create right now, you know, in COVID, of course, to be with your family, and then and people at work and stuff as things come together here. But, and then in the future, I want to really encourage people, and this is something I've been thinking a lot about, and I've got a lot of feedback from people. It's been very healing for them, is to really try to connect with people that when they're with them, you know, it's like, you know, all the boats rise in the tide. I'm saying it wrong, but that they're with people that bring them up. You know, I'm in my 50th year now, and when I'm with people who are bringing me down, I'm just, man, I almost don't even, I'll avoid it as much as I possibly can. And I want to be around people who are more unconditional versus conditional. And so, you know, for the first 50 years of my life, I was in situations that were always conditional. I love you if ... or if you have this view or that. And I just, in the last, you know, whatever time I have left on this earth, whether it's 20 years, 30 years, however long, I want to be in an unconditional environment. And maybe you can speak to that when you're with someone that's unconditional. There's, you know, tremendous safety in that. There's tremendous hope in that. And for me, it's a huge motivator. It greatly increases my resilience when I'm in an unconditional environment versus a conditional.
Yeah, and again, like, it strengthens that connection. I think it's the difference between advocating versus developing. Both are critical. Both are important. But I think sometimes, especially when we're in a teaching situation or even in the workplace, it's sometimes easy to lean heavily on the development. I'm going to grow you. We need to see results. We need to get from point A to point B to point C. But it's the advocating part where I feel trusted. I feel non-judged. I feel like I can open up to you, right? Everybody needs to be seen, heard, and understood. And when you advocate as much as you develop, that then increases the opportunity for not just growth, but stronger connection, and that always will increase productivity, better test scores, better engagement, better loyalty. Again, no significant loyalty ever happens without significant connection either.
Wow, that's powerful. Trust and loyalty. Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's important to ask yourselves, if you're a leader, you're a teacher, how do people experience you, and how do they experience themselves when they're with you.
Wow.
It matters. It really matters.
Absolutely, absolutely. My other question, and thing I want to talk about is being a part of a cause or movement. We see that as a major motivation. Is if they're engaged in something that it's inspiring, it creates real change, it has impact. But being a part of a movement, something that makes a difference. And you see coming out of COVID, I'm watching a lot of different movements happening right now where people are trying to kind of come together, coalesce, and do something productive. How has that been in your life? I know you have a tremendous cause to help human beings heal, to find their inner motivation, that inner strength. You help workplaces with retention and help, you know, I know you're expert at retention a little bit, but what causes us to really, you know, stick with a cause and find meaning in life and not give up?
For me, I mean, I've been in, you know, when I couldn't fly anymore in the story, I literally felt lost, and I had no meaning, especially when it comes to like a career, right? Or like working towards something or having a title. And I remember I asked 3 of my buddies, I sat down in a burger restaurant, literally having no idea what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, found myself in the medical field, kind of was chasing the money, but I was shared, or somebody shared with me a quote by Oscar Wilde that has stuck with me forever, and the quote is, "To live is the rarest thing in the world. For most people merely exist, and that's all."
I say that quote one more time. I'll make sure everybody caught that. Say that quote again.
Yeah, the quote is by Oscar Wilde, where it says, "To live is the rarest thing in the world. For most people merely exist."
Wow.
And that's all. And for me, I was just existing every day. And I proposed to my buddies, I said, wouldn't it be crazy if you could find a job, you could find a career that allowed you to do these 3 things most of the time? And number 1 was, what if it allowed you to do what you love? It contributed to your passion. So we can even go right here real quick. So it contributed to your passion in life. And then number 2, I think that we'll just call this money for right now. What if it contributed financially in your life in a way that was sufficient for your needs? Because, right, there's bills, there's responsibilities in life, and life can be expensive. And then the third part was purpose. What if on a daily basis it allowed you, most of the time, to do something bigger than yourself? What if you could find one job that allowed you to do all 3 most of the time? And both of my buddies, they looked back at me and they said, Clint, I don't think that exists. I don't think you can find something that has all 3. And I said, I don't believe you. And my buddy said, I think what you're talking about is an anomaly. And I was like, anomaly what? He's like, it's rare. And 2 weeks after that conversation, I quit. I quit my job in the medical field with all the benefits and the stability, making decent money. And I left and I went to live. And I truly, to this day, that moment was extremely defining in my life, because the day that I quit my job was truly the day that I started living. And I jumped into the world of professional speaking full time, to be the best for the world, to live, not just exist, right? It's that Mark Twain quote where he said that there's 2 important days in a person's life, right? The day that you're born and then the day you figure out why. And I know that some people might be listening to this going, oh, it's motivational fluff, or yeah, but it is true, right? That I think at the end of our lives, you'll be surrounded by all the woulda, shoulda, couldas, or you'll be surrounded by the do it, did it, done it's. And again, Mark Twain also said that 20 years from now, we'll be more disappointed by the things that we didn't do than by the things that you did do. And for me, especially in this pandemic, it has given me that moment, that chance to pivot yet again, to dream a little bit more while I'm awake. I've had to ask the same questions during this time right now is, okay, how can I still do what I love? How can I still contribute for my family, but also do something bigger than myself? And I mean, you know this, Christian, Jason, you guys have seen this just like the rest of us. 2.5 months ago, my industry died. literally disappeared. We are not doing live events. And so we had to pivot, and we created this virtual studio. This is in my house. This is a small little 10 by 12 foot room. And I love the movie Shawshank Redemption. In that
That's
movie,
my favorite movie.
dude, it's so good, right? Where he says you can either get busy living or you can get busy dying. And right now, I chose to go, okay, what can I control? What am I grateful for? And what can I change? Those three questions, what can you control? What are you grateful for? And what can you change? Has inspired me to pivot, where we've created something that has allowed us to still share our message. And so I'm sorry, that was a long answer to your question, Christian, but
that was a perfect answer to the question. Thank you. That was very, very insightful.
You're welcome.
That's awesome. So one last one here is, my book, The Resilience Breakthrough, we focus quite a bit on Carol Dweck's work with growth mindset, versus a fixed mindset. Fixed mindset is, intelligence and our talents are fixed. We can't, our intelligence isn't going to change. Our talents can't change. And it's all about outcome. I'll keep putting effort into something if I get the outcome. In a growth mindset, abilities can change, through dedication, through hard work. And I know, years ago, I started trying to learn how to play the drums, and I had a fixed, mindset. I was like, man, I have no ability. I have no rhythm. I have no ability to play these drums. And it was funny while you were playing, I was thinking to myself, man, what if I kept playing, if I could have had a growth mindset and put the dedication, I never learned to play the drums because I had no dedication to it. And just that battle of that growth mindset versus the fixed mindset, I'd love to just hear some of your feelings on that, and believing that, what role dedication plays to really keeping that motivation going. And for me, you put the action in, and then the motivation kind of kicks in. And so, like, I'll wake up in the morning, not want to get out of bed, but until I go for a walk, coming in and doing this with you today, since our industry has changed, you were just talking about a few minutes ago, is just the action creates the motivation. But for me, it starts with that growth mindset, that the effort's worth it. So just wanted some of your feelings on that.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think, again, it comes down to that perspective, right? What are you choosing to see? And what's the story that you're choosing to write? I love one of my great friends. His name is James Lawrence. Lives not far from me. He's also another professional speaker. We've shared the stage a few times. And he is known as the Iron Cowboy. Yep. He ran 50 Ironmans in 50 days in 50 states. Like one of the most just physically demanding, literally impossible feats, and he did it. And every time when we've spoke together, we've shared that stage, everybody always asks, how did you do it? Like, how did you accomplish that? And he always gives the same answer, and it is simply, I did small things consistently over a long period of time. Wow. And I think when it comes to progress, right, or it comes to doing hard things, it takes those, it's just the small things, right? Little by little makes a lot. And we must do that over a long period of time. Now, here's my caveat to that, is everybody hears that and they're like, okay, great idea, but I can't even get out of bed. Or great idea, but I can't keep that motivation for longer than 5 minutes. And there's two things that I want to say to that is, first off, listen, I think in the end of all of this, I think we're going to be okay. I really do. That's my personal opinion, and I also believe that if you're not okay, then it's not the end. And I would urge everybody that's listening to this, just simply, if you can, go as far as you can see. If all you've got is 5 minutes, give it your best 5 minutes. If all you can do is get out of bed and brush your teeth, then good for you. You went as far as you can see. Because in my life, as I have done that, if I just go as far as I can see, usually when I get there, I'm able to see further. And again, as I've surrounded myself with good people, doing good, purposeful things, that has allowed me to see that there is greatness. And that has helped with the motivation to keep pushing forward. I never finished the story, but real quick, Christian, in the end of your last question, 6 years ago, I got the phone call from the Moran Eye Center. And they said, Clint, we have just started the first trial, human trial for people with your eye disease. It's not FDA approved yet, but it's called cross-linking. And the program is allowing 600 people to have this experimental surgery. You have to be going blind, and you're one of those people. And I was number 46 on the list. And they flew me to California, and I had surgery done on my right eye, and then 6 months later, they did surgery on my left eye. And it 100% stopped the progression of the disease.
That's beautiful.
And now listen, am I a pilot? Do I fly professionally? No. Do I still fly? Yes. And I learned that sometimes good things fall apart so that better things can fit together. And
that's powerful.
If you're willing to just go as far as you can see, I promise that the best is yet to come. We will be okay in the end of this. And no matter how difficult, how hard it is, rainy days, yeah, they always come, but they are always followed by sunshine. I believe that. And if you can't find your smile, eventually you will find your smile. Just go as far as you can see, and be willing to sometimes just push pause. I think that's okay. I think it's okay to sometimes give ourselves a minute to just go, I'm out. Like, I'm taking a breather. I'm not doing anything today. I'm not being productive. I'm not killing it all the time. And that's okay. Give yourself the ability to breathe during this time. And I believe that the best is yet to come for all of us. And I just have hope in the end of the story. And we are not at the end yet. So choose to write the best one that you can.
Wow, I love that we're not at the end of the story, and we can, all of us, this time is given all of us some time to self-reflect and think about where our motivation comes from. And that's powerful. Like someone say, a lot of yoga, mindfulness, all these people saying different things. That's awesome. And we all have to find, where that motivation comes from. So I hope those 5 things, I know a person or two have asked real quick. I'll highlight the 5 really fast. They believe, we have to believe this possible, that we can make it down the path, to reach that goal. We have to believe it's possible. We want to make sure it's relevant. It's relevant to my life today and to my family's life, my neighbors, my community. And then we have the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. And then number 4 is we got to be able to walk with others, that connection, especially putting ourselves in an unconditional environment as much as possible. And then 5, being a part of a cause, a movement, something that creates meaning and real changes. And Clint, you're an example of all 5 of those things. So when I was thinking about you, that's where those 5 things came out of, and you're an incredible example. Do we have time, Jason, for a question or 2?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the questions that came up, Clint, and maybe you can speak to this, I think it's kind of an interesting question. You told the story about kind of that devastating news when you found out that you couldn't pass the vision test when you were there for the license situation. What was it that helped you? Like, how did you see the motivation to pivot or to find that next thing? Like, was there anything specific for you? Because we work with a lot of kids that deal with pretty devastating situations or scenarios in their lives. What was it for you that kind of helped you make that next pivot to move on to that next thing?
Yeah, I think, honestly, I need to first say I had no clue at first. Like, I didn't. Like, there was a good year where I moseyed around trying to find purpose and meaning in my life. And it didn't just come overnight. But it did come through the association and connection with other purposeful people. And it did come as I moved. Not to be, particularly like religious or anything, but I believe that God can't steer a parked car. And what I mean by that is we need to be willing to move. And that's why I guess I'm so heavy on go as far as you can see. Like, at least, again, what can you control? What can you change? And just go as far as you can see. And usually when you get there, you can see further. I think that sometimes it's easy to stand in front of the fireplace, right, and say, give me heat, then I'll give you wood. Like, show me the path, show me the way. And I think that as we just move, literally take action to move, that creates opportunity. Movement creates opportunity. And so be willing to go as far as you can see, and also be willing to fail, right? You fail your way to success. If you get some road or you get some opportunity and it's not the right one, then okay, then move another direction. Be willing to pivot, but just keep your feet moving. Don't be stagnant. Opportunity comes with movement.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Anything you want to comment on that, Christian?
No, I think you said it beautifully. If you have another question, let's keep those questions rolling.
Yeah. So I think I've got a question for both of you right now. We've got predominantly educators and counselors on right now listening to us, and I think this has been really inspiring. What specific message would you have to the educators right now that are really trying to stay motivated through this pandemic, and they're struggling right now knowing how to, you talked about like advocate versus development. One of the hard things we're faced with right now is how do we do that remotely? How do we do that in kind of a virtual setting? What would you say to educators right now that have all the best intentions, but are still just struggling, wondering if they're making a difference?
Yeah.
Let me start real quick
start,
on that one. Let me answer that real quick. I was just talking to an educator on Friday who said something that hit me really hard, and I've shared this with some people and I had some good feedback. This teacher was telling me that what really renewed her is she did some things to reach out to the students and kind of ask the students how they were doing, and she kind of asked them some fun questions, but that was strengthening to her. That kind of buoyed her back up and stuff. And I think, educators for years, they're in the classroom, they connect with these kids in very powerful ways. And I think sometimes we overlook the emotional loss that the teacher's feeling when they're not with these kids. I mean, these kids become like family to them. And so I encourage teachers to reach out to these kids and connect, and vice versa, and just online, create opportunities for them. I see with my own kids, sometimes my kids get frustrated because, there is less connection, and the teachers that are communicating the most, it's great for both of their mental health. And I want to also emphasize, I think it's really important just on the online world, particularly, that kids see an opportunity to fix things, to work with the teacher. Like say they failed the test or they messed up, to work with the teacher to fix it. And that's kind of a bonding thing for both of them, where they do some extra credit together, they have a conversation about it, how they can have a second opportunity. And anytime someone gives you a second chance, there's a connection there. And I've seen some really cool things just watching some of my kids' teachers, work with my kids where my kids failed at something or struggled at something. They just, under this current circumstance, they had more time to work through it, which created a bond for both of them. I don't mean to go too long there, but it's one of the things I've seen that's been powerful for teachers.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. What about you, Clint? What are your thoughts on tips for educators that really do want to connect right now?
Yeah. Oh, first off, yeah, I agree with everything that Christian said. And I just, thank you again. Like, I know I've said that a few times to all the educators. Like, thank you for what you're doing. Because I know you're not getting a ton of, that of boys and that of girls and pats on the back. And some of you aren't even getting, the support that you need right now. And it is a difficult time. So just, I don't know, thank you for what you're doing and still trying. Because I think that's the half the problem, right, is if we don't try, then nothing's ever going to happen. So thank you for still trying. In the corporate world, we call it the power of what we call status interviews. And I call it status interviews because that's like what a medical provider would ask a patient or ask someone that's having an operation. What's the status? And they're referring to the vital signs of the patient: your heart rate, your blood pressure, your body temperature, and your respiratory rate. Like, those are your vital signs that mean whether you're living or you're not living. And so in the business world, we talk about the power of conducting those status interviews. It's not a stay interview. It's not a one-on-one management meeting. It's not what this is. This is literally an opportunity for you to connect one-on-one with your students. And you don't talk about curriculum. You don't talk about their grades. You don't talk about their assignments. You literally are just trying to check their status. And, Mr. Jensen still to this day has done that in my life. I still get a phone call every month from Larry Jensen in Midway, Utah, and he just calls to check my status. And he says, "Clint, what are you doing? How are you? What's going on with your life? How's your family?" And I think that's an opportunity that we can't forget the power of just one-on-one connection. And every kid, again, wants to be seen, heard, and understood. And it gives you that chance to connect, which will ultimately lead to more significant learning and growth. And so consider asking them, you know, what do you need? What's getting in the way of your success? And what can I do to help you get there? I look back at my life with Mr. Jensen. I really, to be honest, I do not remember a thing that Mr. Jensen ever taught me. Like, I do not remember. But one thing is for darn sure, I will never forget the drumsticks. Never. Because the drumsticks represented two things in my life. They represented hope, and they represented worth. Hope and worth. And he communicated a hopeful story, the possibilities, the potential of something. And then he communicated that I was good enough to do that.
Wow.
And I think more than ever, kids just need a little more hope, and they need to be told they're worth something. And so in your status interview, if you can create an opportunity to communicate those two things to the point that they see it within themselves, man, I think that's what kids remember. And
awesome.
I love that. I love that. I think that's a really important point. It goes right along with our model of resilience from the WhyTry world. Hope is a really vital ingredient to resilience, and then helping find and express value is really vital to that too. One thing I did want to point out as well, we've heard from a couple students the last couple weeks, and then hearing Clint's story and knowing Christian's story. I just really want to express to the educators, if any of you, and we've got people tuned in that are counselors, teachers, therapists, probation officers, if you are experiencing any discouragement right now, I promise you're making more of a difference than you think you are. Those emails that you're sending are making a difference. Those Zoom messages that you're recording are making a difference. I've seen teachers, I heard in the comments here, teachers that are sending out care packages. I've heard of teachers writing chalk messages on their students' driveways or sidewalks. Yeah. All these little things that you're doing are providing really, really important sources of hope and worth. I hope if any of you have had any discouragement creep in over the last few months, which is totally natural, just let these stories inspire you to know that you are making a difference, that connection is really, really valuable. Clint, Christian, I want to give you both the last word on this. We're right on an hour. Any parting messages for the people that have tuned in on this? By the way, for those that have been asking, we have recorded this, and a recording will be available. And I'm going to put up the resources I had at the beginning here in just a minute as well. But Clint, Christian, parting thoughts on this wonderful session.
I want Clint to have the last word. I definitely want Clint to have the last word. And I just want to say what you were alluding to there, Jason, those small things are big things right now. The smallest thing is a massive thing. And a text is huge right now. Now, a text from me from a friend right now is a big, big deal. And the human connection is just so needed. Just the story of a principal the other day I saw who, went and visited all his seniors in high school, literally stood out in the road and they came out on their porch, and he spent I think it was 4 days visiting these guys with hundreds and hundreds of miles traveling around so that he could just have a couple minutes with each one of his seniors. And, and that's more of a big thing to do that commitment, but the little things are big right now. And I just want to encourage everybody, Clint has an amazing website. Just type in the name Clint Pulver, and his website is awesome. And it really helps you see the amazing work he does. And I'm just so grateful there are people like Clint out there, man, that fight that fight with everything they have, and they do it from their heart. And I promise he's one person that will not let you down. The other thing I want to really encourage people, we have now over 15,000 families and I know families are hurting, and kids are, I'm getting a lot of feedback. I'm looking at the data, is, you know, we have more people unemployed than the Great Depression right now. It's putting kids in a very, very complicated situation. There's tremendous emotions with that. I was talking to a judge the other day over the weekend, and one thing he's encouraging kids to do is educators even let kids know, look, if you say your dog is hurting or your dog's grumpy today, that's a signal maybe that things at home are really difficult. And that's the way that maybe educators or social worker, school counselor can help intervene, is just letting these kids know, man, we got to check in. If you're an aunt, an uncle, a relative to these kids, please check in with them, because a lot of these kids are in situations at home where they can't communicate if they're being abused or they're dealing with violence in the house. And we know that this is becoming a very intense issue right now. And as a social worker, I just got to do a little encouragement there that we look for some safe ways. I thought the idea of a kid just communicating, hey, my dog's having a difficult time right now, is a safe way for them to get the message out that they might need some help. So that's why another reason it's so important that we intervene again for friends, family, aunt, uncles, check in with children. And especially, you know, you might know if a family's in a difficult situation, please check in with the kids. And then so please, on our website, if you go to on our website, just go to whytry.org, and we have a parenting guide that teaches resilience to the whole family. And again, we're seeing a tremendous success with that. So please check that out. The other thing is we have a podcast, the Resilience Breakthrough Podcast. Please share that with educators across the country. We've had some incredible guests on there, past national school board president, people who really understand children's issues and education issues and where hope really comes from. So please check out the Resilience Breakthrough Podcast, and let us know how we can serve you anyway. And I'll tell you, I would love to do some events with Clint. If you ever want to get me and Clint online, I know he's got that studio in his house. So if you ever want me and Clint, I think I can talk him to invite me over to his house, and we would love to answer questions, support you guys any way we can. You guys are all my heroes. Thank you for your time today. And I want Clint to have the last word. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you first off to you both again, and everybody at WhyTry for letting me be a part of this, and to jump in and yeah, just be a part of it. What you're doing matters. And again, thank you to everybody that is watching. I hope this has been helpful. I hope that it's also maybe just reminded you of the significance that you have in people's lives, not just the success, then that you are and can continue to be the best for the world. And that's what we remember. We never forget the good ones. And I think during this pandemic, we've been given two things. We've been given time, and then the opportunity to choose what we're going to do with the time that we have. And I hope you'll choose to keep dreaming, keep living, control what you can control. Count your blessings at this time. You know, what are you grateful for, and what can we change? And every day, again, you have the opportunity to write your story. Go as far as you can see, and when you get there, you'll usually be able to see a little bit further. If you're not okay, it's not the end. So keep moving forward. And find a Mr. Jensen if you don't have a Mr. Jensen. And above all, I'll just end with, be a Mr. Jensen. You change lives, you make a difference. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And all my best to everyone that's watching. Good luck.
Love it. Thank you so much. I've put some resources up on the screen where you can check out some of the stuff that we talked about. We're going to have a transcript and a recording available. Some of you have asked about the strategies that Christian listed. We've got those on. And then you've got contact information for Christian or Clint if you want to reach out to them. I'll leave these up for a few minutes. So thank you so much. Big virtual round of applause for Christian and Clint for showing up and sharing this great information. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. And thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for doing what you're doing, helping these kids out. Appreciate it.